Hey guys, you're listening to the Couplings Fire Podcast.
Here's a couple of things you might need to know or maybe you just forgot.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Taylor.
We are married.
And we're both firefighters.
Join us as we talk anything and everything fire related.
We don't claim to be experts. We're just two people who love to talk fire. And everything we say are our own opinions.
Our goal is to inspire anyone listening to take the steps to better their department, however they can.
Well, let's get on to the episode.
Do we have anything to talk about?
We can start out by talking about how summer's officially here. And so if you guys hear kids or mowers or dogs or who knows what in the middle of the episode or any episode coming from now on in the background.
And the neighbor kids are screaming.
They're so adorable when they're not screaming.
I remember those days. I remember screaming bloody murder all the way across the neighborhood and riding our bikes around like crazy. And I'm sure all the neighbors hated us too growing up. But we had a good time.
You lived on a quiet street growing up, so you were able to do that. I lived on a super, super busy street, one of the main streets in town. And so, like, we'd have to just play in our backyard. So, we did.
It was like nothing.
It's huge. What are you talking about?
Your backyard?
Well, yeah. It's huge compared to most houses. Maybe not to yours, but
I disagree. Our yard here is bigger than your parents' yard.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yes, it is. I'm just saying, your parents' backyard isn't that big.
Your parents basically have an acreage in their backyard.
And besides, the other part is most of your parents' backyard is concrete, so it hardly counts as a backyard.
It didn't always used to be concrete, not the whole thing. Most of it, when I was growing up, was grass. And then they poured one concrete slab right in the middle of the yard. It was hilarious. I don't know why they did it in the middle, but right in the middle of the yard for the camper to sit on. And then they ended up pouring a whole concrete pad and everything to like the whole, like where the camper was sitting, all the way to the left of that for the pool and stuff to sit when they decided to get a pool for our backyard. I gotta tell you, that was like the best thing ever growing up, is having a pool in my own backyard. I could go swimming whenever I wanted. I learned to swim in that pool. It was great.
We're gonna agree to disagree. I think it's small. I think it's tiny.
You're just talking about just the grass part, though, right? Not where all the sheds and everything sit.
No, I'm talking the sheds and everything. I don't think it's that big. I think it's a very small backyard.
Yeah, I don't agree with you, so, okay. Moving on. I had a great childhood, thank you very much.
I didn't say you didn't have a great childhood. I'm just saying you hardly had a backyard.
But we did. I don't know. I'm going to have to get measurements, and I can back it up then, but... Okay, so, moving off of this, what are we talking about tonight? What's going on? What awesome thing do we have to tell to our listeners, finally?
I don't know. What do we have to tell them?
Well, first off, something exciting. So if you guys didn't notice, the intro to our podcast changed. And we are moving. Dun, dun, dun! So.
That we are.
That we are.
Someday, eventually.
We are in the process of moving. So if you guys were wondering in the last podcast.
Well, we are preparing to move.
Yeah, well, it's a whole big mess at the moment. So that's the first big piece of news here. So we're not moving out of Nebraska. But we're moving to a little bit bigger area than what we're currently in. So, Chris, what's our second big announcement for, not really big announcement, big news for the listeners today?
What is our second announcement? We should really write this stuff down. That way I know what you're saying. This way I would know where you're going before we go there.
That wouldn't be any fun.
That's true.
It's kind of like, I think sometime we should take a road trip and we should like do the whole either like dice game or like flip a coin or whatever to like figure out like either which city we're going to next or which way we're going to go or whatever. Like that'd be so much fun.
I think that would drive you nuts.
It would, but it'd be fun. Like, I'm not taking like a huge trip. Like, start out with like a day trip, right? So like you're limited to like how far you can go or whatever, but like I don't know. But yeah, you almost like let fate decide for you or whatever for like a day. Yeah, I don't know if I could do it for like a week or a weekend or something, but like start out with a day and see how it goes. It might be fun, and then, you know.
It'd be interesting.
It'd be interesting.
We do a lot of driving. I feel like. I don't know.
Well, like you
Weird.
could like do like a. Jeez, what the crap, honey?
Sorry. My bad.
I thought an earthquake was happening or something. I don't know.
I accidentally kicked the table. Anyway, our big announcement that we're trying to get to, I'm trying to get to here, I guess, is we did our first interview for the podcast.
Yay!
A couple weeks ago, actually.
Yeah.
And we're gonna get it out to you guys here, and that's what tonight's episode is gonna be. But it was a freaking blast, and we've kind of got it. I guess you figured out how to record it all and do all that stuff because we did it over Zoom, I believe.
Yes, and I've never done that, and so and obviously we haven't really done interviews before, so it's like it was a whole big thing trying to figure out how to do the interview, the audio.
You were losing your mind.
I was losing my mind.
This panic attack.
It turned out fine. I think it's gonna go better the next interview we have, though. Just like sound quality and things, but
yeah.
I figured out more since then.
Yeah. So we interviewed Tim Zehnder, who we met up in Kearney at the Les Lucert conference, and I know we throw that in the podcast here a decent amount anyway, and we love that conference, and he was the past president for it. Taylor got to know him a little bit, and then I got to know him a little bit, and now we're, I want to say, fairly decent friends with him. I don't know. I haven't actually heard his opinion on us, I guess, but I assume since he wanted to come, he agreed to come on our podcast, that we're fairly decent friends now, and we just had an absolute blast talking to him and learning some new stuff from him.
Oh yeah, we could have talked for hours and hours and hours on that subject and other subjects, and I'm sure we're gonna have him on again in the future about some other topic that comes up. You know, if you guys have any specific questions that we can throw his way or whatever, I think it'd be a blast. So
yeah, and he is so knowledgeable on so much stuff. And the only reason we actually ended up stopping that night was because his laptop was gonna die.
Yeah.
So, but so yeah, we had our first interview and it was a blast, and that's what we're gonna share with you guys tonight. So
yeah, we hope you enjoy.
Yeah, this is Tim Zehnder, and amongst he'll get into it here when we get the interview, but he loves the grain elevators, and
we're talking grain bin emergencies today.
Yeah, so he knows a ton about them. He's done a ton of research, and he's very passionate about it, and it was just a blast to talk to him. So we hope you guys enjoy it, and here it is.
Tim, it's great to have you on. I'm so happy you're going to be our guinea pig, our first interviewee on this podcast. How are you doing, Tim?
I'm great. Really happy to be part of this. You guys got a good thing going here.
All right, so I think we're just going to go ahead and why don't you go ahead, for anyone who doesn't know you listening to the podcast right now, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, as much or as little as you want to, information as you want to give, and we'll go from there.
Well, my name's Tim Zehnder. I'm the director of the fire training program at Mid Plains Community College. My office is based out of McCook, way southwest Nebraska. I was an active firefighter for 30 years and started my career in Minnesota. I have been a volunteer my entire life. Had the opportunity to start teaching about 6 years into my career, doing some little stuff, and then it all evolved to the point that I ran a training program at one of the state colleges in Minnesota, and then decided to take a leap of faith and moved to McCook, Nebraska to run a fire program there about 9 years ago. And I've had the ability to do a lot of really good things, or the opportunity, if you will. I've taught with ISFSI, the International Society of Fire Service Instructors, with a live fire training class, and have taught all over the U.S., 7 states at this point, including Alaska, and made 3 trips to Canada. I'm very passionate about the rescue side of things, specifically grain bin. Growing up in the farm background that I did in Minnesota, there was a need, and thanks to my father, who had this idea that we should put a grain bin on a car trailer. We all looked at him like he was crazy. Turns out it was one of the best things we ever did. And so now we travel around and do a lot of grain bin rescue stuff and awareness and safety, and also do a bunch of rescue type stuff. But like I said, my passion is the rescue side of what we do.
Oh, that's awesome. So with the volunteer firefighting, did you just get into that? Did you have other family who was in on that first?
My mom's dad, Grandpa Ray, was a volunteer in a neighboring town, and then Dad volunteered in Truman, Minnesota, where I grew up. And as soon as I could, I became a volunteer there. And I held every position from firefighter to chief. And the only point in my life I brag about, other than my three daughters and now my grandson, is the fact that my father and I are the second father son team to ever be chief in 114 years of the existence of the fire department that's there.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
that's something that you don't see very often. And
Mm-mm.
when Dad started, he was on the department with Russell. And then Brian came on, and Brian was Russell's son, was Dad's assistant chief. And then when Dad retired, Brian became chief, and I was Brian's assistant chief, and then I became chief. So it all really intertwined, which is even a cooler story, other than the fact that there's only been two of us that have ever done it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that is a pretty cool story. Yeah. I don't know anyone like that, I guess.
I
that's
don't
done
either.
That, so that's pretty cool.
It was a lot of fun, a lot of memories, I mean, I remember as a little kid going with Dad to events, and Russell was there, and then as a new firefighter, Brian was Dad's assistant chief, and it just all evolved, and everybody helped everybody, and that's what fire service does, and
Hmm.
helped you get to the next level. And so, yeah, it was a good ride. 30 years is a long time.
Yeah, definitely a second family though when you get into it for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I have
Oh
some of
yeah.
the closest friends in the world because of the fire service, and all over Canada and all over the US. And I mean, that's what the fire service is about. And you can pick up the phone, and I have their numbers in my phone, and go, hey, what do you think about this? And they'll give you an answer and help you out, as I would for anybody that called me. So you have to pay it forward for our business to keep thriving. And,
Hmm.
somebody got me to where I was. Now it's my job to help somebody else get to where they want to be. And then that person will help the next person, and so on and so forth. And everybody pays it forward. And the fire service will always stay strong then.
Oh, that's just great. I love that.
Yeah, I do too. So
So when you came from Minnesota to Nebraska, I'm assuming, well, both volunteer departments on both ends of things, right? So,
Correct.
so when you came over, were things pretty much the same or very different, as in terms of maybe some of the issues you have on volunteer departments, or pros and cons to things, or what?
It was a little bit different, only because McCook is a combination department and
Okay.
has 9 career guys in the chief, because they're the only paramedic service within, like 70 miles.
Mm,
So the EMS side, um, it was a little bit different having career guys at the station, um, and running shifts and how they did things, and that kind of thing. I just said this yesterday in a conversation I had. The fire service is exactly the same no matter where you're at. Faces change. And so the issues are the same. How are we going to get volunteers? Where are we going to find money? What are we going to do for this? Why don't we have people coming to training and that kind of thing? That's the volunteer fire service in anywhere I've been. And even on the career side, um, and in the career departments I've been to, and had I don't know what word it is, but had the pleasure of being able to teach at, you know, they're still having some of the same issues that we do, just on a different level from the volunteer to the career side. So that makes it interesting as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right. No, you're fine. I want to put in a shameless plug here. Tim, we met you, or I guess Taylor met you first. I kind of got the joy of following second, but we met you at the Les Luker conference in Kearney,
Yep,
and you just got done being president of that, right?
correct.
How long were you president? I didn't catch.
I ran 4 years as president. And that's another funny story. I was part of the ISFSI, International Society of Fire Service Instructors, when I was in Minnesota and moved to Nebraska. And I knew a guy from Nebraska that was on the national board. And I get a phone call one day, and he's like, "Hey, you should become part of our group." Well, the phone call from Shane Cutler's turned into, "Yeah, I'll come help you out," to, "Hey, Tim, you're going to be president."
So
So,
it kind of happens to everybody, huh?
oh yeah, as time went on and people stepped out of positions and people moved away, and my passion is training. It always has been making people better. I really enjoy that, and it just seems like somebody had to step up and take that spot. And with Chris Moore and I being directors, and then we kind of transitioned into the president and vice president, and now Chris is president. um, the thing is, now my job as a past president is to help out, and we got to mold people to be part of the organization, first of all. Second of all, to get on the board and keep that conference going and continue to bring in, national speakers, so we can keep that conference as vibrant as it is.
Oh, it's a conference I love. And we were talking before we hit record here about how, that is the conference that I finally got out of my shell, that I was able to start building confidence with, and just the level of instructors that come, and the instructors that do come, they are so in tuned to people just wanting to learn. That's what they want, so they will work with anybody, whether it be the top level person or just the lowest level, the newest firefighter on there. They're going to work with anybody no matter what, and get you up to speed where you at least succeed, have at least a success in the class, even if it's not necessarily the top performer.
Exactly. And like we said earlier when we were talking before we started, the thing is, those guys, a lot of them who are retired, still are traveling the country putting out a message because they want our
Mhm.
job to be better and help the younger folks get there. Now, I don't care if you're a firefighter in New York City or in LA or Minneapolis, Minnesota, and you have a message to give. None of those people that put those classes out there treat anybody any different, no matter where they come from. You might be at a department of 12 people and have 4 sets of turnout gear. They're going to figure out to get you a message to help you out. And at the end of the day, that's what we have to do. You
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, and that's really, I know for you Taylor, it was getting out of your comfort shell. For me, it was getting out of my bubble of my own department and getting that networking that the conference offers, and seeing, yeah, that, like you're saying, no matter where these firefighters are coming from across the country, they're all there to help. They all there to, you're one big family, and it's awesome. I
Yeah.
love it.
Right.
So
Absolutely. Absolutely 100%.
And sometimes we feel out of place at our own departments, or other people listen to this, they might feel the same way, that they're just a little too into the fire service, quote unquote, for most people to to tolerate sometimes in these small rural volunteer departments. But there's other people like us out there.
Oh, absolutely. Um, First of all, I heard somebody say this years and years ago. First of all, when you decide I'm going to be a firefighter. Okay. Chief Croker in New York City said the day you sign your name and become a firefighter, your hero, after that, you're doing your job. Okay. True story.
Mm-hmm.
Take that to a different level. The day you decide to become a volunteer firefighter and you're going to do this for free, you might be a little crazy.
Just a little.
And you're doing it for the good of your community and because your heart's in the game.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So in the volunteer fire service, we got to train twice as hard because we see way less calls. We don't have that on the job experience. We have to keep our nose in what's going on in the business. So as it changes, we can stay up with it. And that's why training is so vitally important, especially to have the ability to bring the quality of instructors we bring to Les Lukert, because you don't get that, and to put it almost in the middle of the state so everybody can drive in and see it and to have the chance to interact with those guys. It's awesome.
Well, and a lot of these classes are the same classes that they'd be teaching at these national levels for things.
Absolutely. It's the classes that these guys come in and present at Les Lukert are the same programs that they put on in Indianapolis at FDIC, typically held in April. And maybe a sidebar plug, now FDIC is in August this year, the first week of August. Hopefully we can, some of your listeners will be there and will walk up and say, hey, how you doing?
Right.
Because that's a place for somebody like me that doesn't get to go to a lot of trainings because I'm involved with different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I try to never, ever, ever miss that, because the day you decide you know it all, you're done. You have to continue learning forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And that gives me the ability to go sit in a class or to do something that keeps giving me knowledge for my toolbox and make me better at my job at the college. And when I do classes on the road, whatever, all of that stuff makes you a better person. And if you stop taking in knowledge, then you're teaching old stuff, and you can't teach old stuff. You got to stay crisp and new.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And that's, like you said, sometimes being that person in charge of the trainings, you get a little wore out too, doing all the trainings all the time, and you want to participate. And that's, like you said, that's your chance to go do it. So that's cool.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So I just wanted to bring up Les Lukert because it has been a very big part in where we're at and kind of why we started the podcast, because we love it, and
we can't do it just once a year.
Yeah, it's a great way to reach out and make that connection and talk to people, and we love it. So
yeah,
absolutely.
Well, we'll move on from that here. We won't make the whole episode about Les Lukert, but
we could.
Yeah, we definitely
I already did one this year. We could do another one.
But so yeah, like you were kind of saying when you got into this here, you have a huge passion for the grain bin rescue.
Yep.
And that came about just from you growing up on a farm?
Well, my dad grew up on a farm, and as a child and even up through my teen years, Grandpa and Grandma were still farming. And so we lived in town, but went out, helped milk cows and farmed, and found out after the fact that a lot of the things that we talk about not to do when you're around grain bins, we did growing up because that's what we did.
Yeah.
And then as you get older, you think, that was dumb. So, I mean, true story. It's crazy. But back up about, let's see, probably 18, 19 years ago, we were talking about this stuff, and there was nobody that had a grain bin rescue prop. Nobody was talking about grain bin safety. And as most great ideas in the fire service come from a firefighter that had an idea. And we were at a conference and had gone to the hotel restaurant bar. Anyway, my dad draws a picture of a grain bin on a trailer. And he's a 25-year guy. And he goes, I'm going to build this. And at first, we all thought he was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to put a grain bin on a trailer? Well, he is. Well, fast forward about 2 years, he got a company to buy into his idea, and we put the first grain bin on a trailer and started teaching safety and teaching, shutoffs and lockout tagout and augers and all this different stuff that went along with grain bin safety. And geez, what are we going to do? How are we going to get a person out of there? Well, ropes are involved, so now we got to get the rope rescue thing involved to this. And if you read the confined space standard, a grain bin is every single line of the confined space standard. It meets it to a T, not designed for continuous human occupancy and so on and so on and so on and so on. And I'm not going to bore you with the confined space standard, but it meets it to a T. So now we have to teach this or treat this as a confined space. So now a lot of other things come into this, and then somebody comes up with this amazing idea. We should have a grain bin rescue tube. So all these companies got in the ball game of building grain bin rescue tubes, and that evolved into where we are today. Probably in the last 10 years, I'll say, rescue tubes have become really, really popular. And a lot of insurance companies and co-ops have jumped up and went, you know what, this is a really great thing for our volunteer fire departments to have. So you fill out a piece of paper and we'll donate one to you.
Oh yeah, exactly. I know, like
Awesome.
we had our own on our department already, but
I think we got probably 5 or 6 years ago.
it was right after I got on, so probably about 7 or 8.
Yeah.
But then the local co-op like contacted us within the last 2 or 3 years and basically said like, hey, if you don't have this, we'll pay for it. But it was like,
Right.
we already had it, so give it to another department that might need it,
Right.
know, but still.
And
Yeah.
and that's the cool part. Okay, so now we have all these departments that got this rescue tube. And some of the tubes they got training with. Some of them were like, here you go, and didn't get training with. So now they have this piece of equipment and weren't taught how to use it. So back up to when I took the job in McCook at the college, I looked around and nobody was doing grain bin rescue training here. And I started looking at the distances between towns, the focus on farming and ranching in Southwest Nebraska. And I went to the powers at the college and went, this is what I want to do. And they're like, well, run with it, see how far you can go. And I'm going to put a little plug in here. MFS York, I presented them with my idea of what I wanted to do. And before I could finish my presentation, they said, just tell us what you want, we'll take care of you. And
Awesome.
they donated everything that had to do with the bins on my trailer. The motors, the augers, the bin sheets, the roof, everything that had to do with the grain bin. We bought the trailer, I built it, and we tweaked it a little bit a couple times, and we are where we are today. And have had the joy of getting to go to Wyoming and Colorado and all over Nebraska with our trailer that we have, into northern Kansas. And because if you think about it, in 2019 there were 38 incidents, grain bin entrapment incidences. Okay, I'm not a big math guy, but 23 of the 38 turned into death. It was a recovery situation. That is not real good odds. So when the volunteer fire service rolls up to a situation like this and we have somebody trapped in a bin, a couple things we need to worry about. First and foremost, if somebody has passed away in that bin and this is a recovery situation, the last thing we want to do is hurt or kill one of our responders to recover a body.
Yeah.
So how can we do this safely and ethically and still get the job done and get that person who passed away to their loved ones the way you should in a respectful manner? A lot of moving parts, The lockout tagout thing, the access points, the heights you're dealing with. Chris Moore from Sutton, who is now the president of the Les Lukert Group, teaches with me. We got a chance to go out and tour the farm that he works at. They have right at 750,000 bushels of grain storage on a family farm.
Holy cow.
Jeez. Well, from what I understand, the family farms aren't getting much smaller either.
They're getting bigger. Because the more storage they have on farm, the better that they can market their product.
Mm-hmm.
And as we know, with the prices of things that are going right now, corn and beans are going through the roof. And if you're paying storage fees at the elevator, that's cutting out of your bottom line. So they're putting it on the family farm.
Oh yeah. So I know we at least have a couple listeners who don't know a lot about the farming community and stuff like that. So for those who don't know, farmers can, for lack of better, the very simplified version here, because I didn't grow up around this, so I had to learn it simplified myself. Basically, they're able to store their own crops and stuff themselves, and they can sell it at, hopefully, fingers crossed, the higher prices. So they kind of just hold on to that as they need be, or throughout harvest or whatnot, to be able to sell it when they can. So if they have the bigger storage at their own farms, they can sell it when it's high instead of selling it when it's full, basically. So
Correct. And so they're basically marketing their own product.
Mhm.
And they can do exactly what you just said. So that said, we are seeing people who have been killed in grain bins range in the age from 7 all the way to
Holy cow.
86.
I,
Okay. 86 years old.
Well, you got those older farmers, especially if they don't have kids around or whatever, or if it's their job to go do that, first of all. And then same thing with the kids. If it's something easy for the kids to do, they think to go check on stuff or.
But as a farm kid, we played in the grain bins,
That's what everyone told me. Yeah.
And didn't think about it. We just did it. I mean, because it was a cool place to play. Back in the day, they didn't have the distributors at the top of the bin that leveled the bin off. It would build this big cone at the top. And then grandpa would say, hey, take a scoop shovel, go to the top, level the bin so we could get some more in it. The thing he didn't know is we took a football with us. And when we got it flat, we played football up there. And looking back at what we did, it was all fresh crop corn. There was no gases. In the long run, it probably wasn't that a bad idea, but
still,
that's not a place to play, but we did it.
Yeah.
Here's another statistic. 50% of the deaths that happen after a rescuer shows up, and that being a neighbor, a family member, whatever, 50% of those people that are the first one in the bin also pass away.
so you got 74% in the first place, and then 50% for the next person that finds them.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Not real good odds. Okay. The other thing that I want people to think about is how many farmers have you ever met in your life that have actually truly retired?
No one.
Well, I work in the farming world, working on 4-wheelers and stuff like that, and yeah, nobody actually ever retires, I don't think.
No, they just do something else.
Yeah.
They're not 100% involved. They just are a little bit involved. And if they see something that needs to be done, bam, they don't do it because they've done it that way for 50 years and nothing's ever happened.
Mhm.
Right, yeah.
They're like, oh, I got old. That doesn't stop me. Or my reflexes aren't slower.
True story. So it's things to think about as you travel through. Here's another statistic. The average American farmer today is 58 years old. And I
That's a
pose a
lot older than I
question.
thought.
Do you suppose that number is going to get less or get higher in the next 5 years?
Personally, I think it's going to get higher because I feel like, and it's not a bad thing, but everyone is teaching their kids and hounding into their kids to go do what you love, which is great. And I don't discount that at all. But there's so many kids that aren't going to come back to the farm because of that. They're not going to come back to the farm and do the whole legacy farming. And actually, that's when a lot of farms start making money and anything anyways, but they're not going to do that because they have other interests. And so these farmers aren't just going to like go of their fields or anything. They're just going to keep doing it.
And that's the thing, you know, in the 70s, people left home, went to college, be it tech school or community college or university. And when they got done, they came home and they worked for the family farm or started their own business in town and still helped farm with the family farm. So they were still involved. Today, the trend is going totally the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Because of the certain jobs in the country where you can make a lot more money and work a lot less hours, people tend to look at the bottom line versus how happy you are at the end of harvest and go, hey, look what we did, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that number is going to go higher, and it's sad, but that's also an effect why you're seeing the family farms get as big as they are. You know, heck, there's around the town that I grew up in Minnesota, there's 2 or 3 on-farm grain storage sites that have more storage than what the co-op elevator does in the town I grew up in.
Oh, wow.
Jeez.
Now, to add to that, think about this. Over 90% of the grain bin rescue entrapments or incidents that happen across the country, they don't happen at your local co-op. They happen on the family farm.
As I said, I think part of that is the co-ops have to comply to a safety standard where the farms don't.
Correct. The co-ops have to follow OSHA rules. Family farm's a family farm. And so they're not under that umbrella. Now, I want to make very clear, I am not picking on the family farm because one of my all-time passions in the world is farming and ranching, and I absolutely love it. But the chance for a call to that location is way, 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 way higher than going to your local co-op.
So that being said, when do the fire departments usually get called?
Well,
That
here's
when
the
someone's
thing.
been missing for a day?
Not so much a day, but you know, in the fire service, we do things 2 in, 2 out, right? That's been beat in our head since the day we started. The problem is how many American farmers work by themselves on a daily basis.
Oh, too many. There's too much stuff to get done.
Yeah, we don't have enough time. Okay, we don't have enough time. So they end up working by themselves. And so you get called, somebody's in the green bin, you pull up, it's 4 p.m. Somebody in the yard, we're like, hey, where are they at? Well, we think they're in the bin right there. How long they been in there? Well, he came in for lunch. Last time we saw him was 12:30.
Yeah, sounds about right.
How do you know he's in there? Well, we don't for sure, but his pickup's parked by the bin and the hatch is open, and that's where he said he was going.
Mm.
You crawl to the top, you look in, and you see a ball cap laying on the grain surface. That's not a good scene.
No.
Yeah.
You now are thinking, I've met one person on a side note here. I've met one person in like 19 years of doing this that's been completely buried in grain and he lived. One.
I mean, that's hard. Like, we did training several times, and we're fortunate enough. As long as we were on the department floor, we never saw one, which is great. We trained for it at least a couple times a year, but we never saw one. But I was one of the quote unquote victims in one of the scenarios, and it's tough even when you're just up to your chest. It's tough to breathe. And so just imagine, and for people who don't know how this stuff works, the more you step on it, the more you're around the corn. Anytime you breathe in, that corn fills in, breathe out or anything, that corn fills in, and you can't, your diaphragm can't expand to get the breath anymore.
Exactly. And the pressure from the grain will eventually suffocate you.
Yeah.
And the pressure is enough, which is, it's hard to wrap your head around. We were doing a demonstration at the state fair a couple of years ago, and Chris's son Travis was with us, and people would come and go, "Hey, what are you doing?" And so we had cameras set up and a TV screen so they could watch what was going on in the bin. And we sucked Travis down to about his belly button, and we went in and put the rescue tube around him and dug him out. And I was talking to the crowd about how crazy the pressure is. And Travis had shorts on. And in our bin, we have plastic pellets instead of grain because that way we don't have to worry about spoilage and all that kind of thing. But they flow just like corn and beans does. So they got him out, and Travis waves, and I go, "Hey, Trav, come down here." And he, like I said, he was wearing shorts. His legs looked exactly like a golf ball.
Oh man.
Because of the dimples and the pressure in our controlled situation. His legs looked like golf balls.
That's a great, that's a great visual for people though.
Exactly.
It's awesome.
Now think about being in a 250,000 bushel bin and the added pressure that goes with that. Now, how's that going to feel? It's hard for anybody to wrap their head around. I just had somebody ask me last weekend, we were doing a class in North Platte, Nebraska. They said, "Tim, how many of these have you done?" And I said, "Trainings?" They said, "No, real events." And I said, "0, and I want to keep it that way." But when I was in Minnesota, there was 4 departments within 20 miles of us. The one was probably 30, but all had incidents. And in those 4 incidents, it was a 50-50. 2 of them recoveries, 2 of them were rescues. But the thing that sometimes people forget, and I'm just going to go off on this little side note here, is
go ahead.
It may not be an entrapment. Okay. Think about local elevator in the town you live in. The belt breaks on one of the motors on the top at the head house at the elevator. Okay. So Mr. Smith goes up with a new belt, gets to the top, and now he has a medical event. Is your department equipped to get Mr. Smith off the top of the 80-foot concrete elevator and get him to the ground to get him to EMS and to the hospital? How are you getting him off of there?
Hopefully you've talked about that before.
So, I never in my career ever thought that I'd go drive to a farm and pre-plan a grain elevator on a family farm. But we did, because they were so big, you had to, you know, rural America, not many aerial apparatuses. You got to know where your closest crane is. So you get a high point anchor so you can hook your rope system so you can, you know, get people to up and down.
Oh yeah.
Well, even
Specifically
simply,
down.
yeah, like and specifically for us, like our elevator here, I mean, we have a 95-foot platform. We have no capability of getting to the top of that elevator.
Yeah.
But we're not rope certified either. So for us, it was, where's the closest rope team? What are our resources? You know, how long is it going to take? Stuff like that.
What can we do in
Absolutely.
the meantime?
Yeah, you know.
And that's part of our gig when we go out and do grain bin classes, is these departments like, well, we don't have the rope, we don't have an aerial, and I'm like, okay, so you're the American Fire Service. They call you. I don't care if you have the equipment or not. Your
You have a
inner
plan.
being is going to tell you you got to do something.
Yeah.
And so you do it. If you've gone through a grain bin class, or if you understand how all this stuff works, there are a number of things that you can do while you're waiting for the county rope team or the big city rope team or a crane to get there, or whatever the case may be. In Minnesota, we had an 85-foot platform that was 10 miles south and a 102-foot platform 17 miles north. And they put a brand new bin up at our local elevator that was 102 foot across and 95 foot to the eave. Neither apparatus would reach the eave of that due to setback. Because when you set your aerial, and that's a whole nother
Hold on.
discussion.
This was the question that's actually coming out in the podcast. It's coming out this week. Because we had the 95-foot platform, but we were wondering how tall it actually goes. And we were trying to look it up and we couldn't figure it out. And we're not good at math. So we were trying to figure this out. So actually it's hilarious that we're talking about this now, because in 2 days, the podcast goes out where we put this question out. So we might get an answer already.
You have to think about, you can reach 95 feet if you're going to go straight up. Okay. But any setback, so, and this is where you're going to start doing editing. Here's the edge of your bin, right?
Yeah.
Here's your aerial backs up here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the distance between the bin and your aerial is X number of feet, right? So your aerial goes 95 feet straight up in the air. As soon as I do this, what do you lose?
You lose
Height.
reach.
Yeah.
Your height.
Height, right?
Yeah.
So easy figuring, bin, aerial. If this is sitting 10 feet from the bin and this is 95 feet and I move that over, how high are you reaching?
I'm assuming 85 feet then. Oh man, I learned math.
At max.
At max. Okay.
At max. Probably going to be a little bit less, but no more than that because of your setback between A and B. This gap right here.
Okay, one last question when pertaining to that, because this is another part of the question too. So when we say 95-foot platform extension ladder, does that include the height of the truck, or is that just the ladder part?
Nope. That is
Just
from
ladder.
the ground
Oh, okay.
to the platform that you're standing on.
This is awesome. All right. We recorded that episode, what, a month and a half ago? Something like that. And we're like, we couldn't look it up right. We tried looking it up everywhere, but we didn't have the right words or something to figure it out. So thank you.
But see, those are the things you got to think about is I'm 95 foot to the eave. How am I going to put a high point anchor up there to rig my rope system? And I have nothing overhead to tie to. You have to have some sort of high directional point when we go into the rope side. And I'm not going to do that on this podcast. But you got to have that anchor point that you can trust. So is it something where you need to bring a crane in, hook your high directional off a crane so they can be above the hole so you have a point that you feel confident enough to lift off of?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you have to look at your surroundings. You have to look at what you have. And again, there's so many things that go in to the grain deal, the condition of the grain, the air quality in there. You got to monitor the entire time. All those different kinds of things. Where's the shutoffs? Lock that stuff out. How long has the person been in there? Were they in good health before they went in? And you may get to the top of the bin and you may look in and the guy's like, hey, get me the F out of here.
Yeah, he might just be ankle deep or something, or just enough to, maybe more than
That's a
ankle deep,
bonus.
more like waist.
That's a bonus because now the air is good and he's alive. Hey, hang on. We're going to throw you a rope. You tie this around underneath your armpits, and we're going to make it tight up here at the hole. Now you're not going to go any deeper. We're not going to pull you out with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because, for example, if you weigh 165 pounds and you're buried 3 feet in the grain, it takes 325 pounds of force to pull you out.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Okay. So at 165, I throw an extra 160 pounds of force to your body, and I'm just going to pull you out. You're not going to be real happy with the situation and what's going to happen to your body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Let's say because you have a little over 300 pounds pulling you up, and then you have another 160 pulling you back down.
yeah,
that's
because of
gonna
the
hurt.
pressure of the grain. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if you take that to another level, I weigh about 300 pounds and I'm 6'3". Okay. Now do the math to that. Okay. Or if you are 6 foot buried in the grain at 165 pounds, you need 1,335 additional pounds of force to pull you up.
Holy cow.
Exactly.
That escalates very quickly.
Extremely fast. Okay. We were doing a training in our training prop. We had a guy in the tube and you could see the top of his work boots. He was wearing or pull-on work boots. And we had a bar above the top of the tube and said, hey, grab a hold of the bar and see if you can pull yourself out. Like I said, we could see the top of his boots. He grabbed that bar and basically did a pull-up and pulled himself out of his own boots. And you could see the top of his boots. There was still that much pressure on his boots.
On his boots. Yeah, it's crazy how fast that will start pulling on you and how much friction that adds to whatever you're wearing,
Exactly.
So
yeah. Yep. And then the further up your body you get with the pressure on all your vital organs, you can shut down your lung capacity because every time you breathe and exhale, it pushes in tighter. Then you can talk about crush syndrome.
as I say, you get into crush syndrome and things like
and all
that
the toxins start going back and people crash and all that kind of thing. One thing I really, really want to stress, and I don't want to start an argument, but I'm very adamant about this. If you have somebody trapped in the grain bin and you dig them out and they say, oh, we're just going to climb out. And you're like, no, you're riding down with us. Nope. And they're like, well, I'm just going to climb out. No, sir, you're going to go for a free ride. We are going to package that patient and they're going out on a rope system. And the reason I say that is when you have a patient on an EMS call says, no, I'm not going to the hospital. What do they have to sign, Chris?
A no transport sign or a liability waiver.
Yep. Liability waiver, refusal of transport, yada, yada. Right. Okay. I'm not working that way because, and this is why, if that person gets halfway down the bin, climbing down the ladder on the outside, and now has a medical event due to the crush scenario that he was in, and passes out and falls off the bin and bounces on the ground in front of everyone watching, we didn't do our due diligence to get that person to the ground safely.
Mm-hmm.
As much of an argument as you're going to have with him or her, they go in a sked, they go on a rope system, and when they get to the ground and they tell us, as on the EMS side, I'm not going. Okay, here, sign this.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
guess
once
what?
they're down and once
They're
they're
100% safe from the bin on the
Mhm.
ground out of our hands.
It's almost like if you take like a signature or something like that. Hey, do you want us to like save your house or go rescue your daughter? Can you please sign this to make sure we can go do it? Or like,
Exactly. I'm not letting anybody make that trek
yeah,
out that hatch and down that outside ladder and have the chance of them passing out and bouncing off the ground. They're
Yeah.
going for a ride.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Kick back and enjoy it. It's free. We'll just lower
Yep.
you right down there.
I agree with you. So I want to back up here a little bit. We were talking about grain bins, and earlier the situation that you gave us was you knew what bin they were in. When we get called, you say, yeah, he's in this bin. Well, a lot of those bins are in groups. If you're not kind of around the farm stuff, a lot of the bins go up in the groups or rows. And if they're parked at the end of the row or in the middle of the group, and you really don't know where they're at, and we were kind of suggesting the guys to like put a handkerchief like on the ladder or something
Mhm.
like that of what bin they were in. You ever heard of anything like that, or you guys kind of talk about that kind of stuff? Or
I've had a couple people mention to us about their safety thing on the farm is they will hang something on the ladder going up or indicate where they're at.
good.
Um,
Yeah.
that's fine and good. I personally, we shouldn't be at that point though, honestly, because anytime somebody goes in a bin, they should have a harness on and have a rope hooked to them,
Mm-hmm.
and there should be two people there.
Yeah.
And we're seeing baby steps of that changing. There are places that we've been. They're like, oh yeah, we went and got a chunk of rope and we got a harness, and nobody goes in unless somebody's there watching it. Cool. Okay, so the message is getting out there, and people are starting to realize how dangerous it can be, but not nearly enough. And I think the more that people talk about it, and the more that this stuff happens, I think it's gonna get better. One of the opportunities because of COVID that we didn't get to do in 2020 is we were supposed to go to the state FFA convention in Lincoln, and they were going to run every single attendee
That's awesome.
through the grain bin trailer in 3 or 4 days
Oh man.
as an awareness to all the FFA kids. And the person I was talking to, who was setting all this up, said, and I just looked, I said to her, I go, what's your goal? She goes, I want every one of those kids to go home and go, Dad, Grandpa, brother, uncle, cousin, no more taking chances.
Mm-hmm.
And fingers crossed, the COVID stuff goes away. We get to do this because she said, as soon as we're back, we're bringing you. So I'm hoping in 2021 that we'll get to make that trip to Lincoln and run all those kids through the program. Because if you can start the safety stuff young and they go home and go, hey,
Oh yeah. Well, the dad's gonna listen to his little darling angel, whether it be girl or boy and stuff, first of all. And if
Right.
nothing else, that's how you start change. You start it with the younger people. If you're trying to start changing your own fire department, it's hard sometimes to get the older generation or the upper firefighters in on it. But you can start getting the younger ones in, the newer people in. You do that with kids too. You start getting them saying that this is normal. It's not unmanly or anything to do these safety precautions. And so if nothing else, by the time they have the farm, because FFA, by the time they have the farm, they're going to be hopefully implementing these. So if nothing else, within 30 years or whatever, they will have this implemented.
And it's gonna tip it over.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna go from people taking chances to somebody going, oh, wait a minute, where's that harness and that rope?
Yeah.
Okay. And I've had people say to us when we've been out doing a class, are from the farm and ranch community that are there to observe. Well, that's not realistic because you're saying never go in a grain bin. I said, no, I've never said never go in a grain bin. I understand. You got to fix the distributor. You got to change a light bulb. There are reasons you need to enter. I 100% agree, but make that entry safe. Don't do it by the skin of your shorts. And unfortunately, this day and age, the majority of the folks are doing it by the skin of their pants, and a lot of people are getting caught.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I think you're saying before, from when these statistics started coming out, they really haven't changed up till the recent years.
As of 2019, the average rescue time from someone being trapped to someone being either to being rescued, minimum 3.5 hours.
Wow.
If it's a recovery, you pick a number. I know of 2 documented cases just lately that were over 8 hours, and Toledo, Ohio, and due to the incident still being under investigation, I can't talk a lot about it, but Toledo, Ohio had 2 gentlemen die in a grain bin, and it was almost 9 hours before the scene was over.
Holy cow.
And
that's crazy.
It's hard to imagine.
Yeah.
Right. I've seen the pictures. I've heard what happened on scene and had firsthand accounts of what they did. One of the guys that I'm good friends with on Toledo actually called me and said, or texted me and said, hey, I'm on the way to this. Have you seen it? And I said, what are you talking about? He said, there's a helicopter flying over the top. Go online. He said, I'll talk to you later. And so I watched it all day long. And as soon as it clears the courts and all that kind of stuff, the chief has assured this firefighter that I know that they will hook me up with all the information so we can add it to our program and use it as a training moment, because what these guys did to get those 2 folks out of there was so far outside the box. Great thinking, kept everybody safe. We're able to recover both bodies and get them out of the situation. And it was awesome what they had to go through. They had temperatures, and I don't quote me on this, but close to 140 degrees inside the bin because of how hot it was outside and what was going on inside. It was somewhere in the 130s, high 130s, the temperature inside the bin. And they merely had to rotate people very regular because they were soaked to the bone.
Yeah.
And, running out of gas. So.
Well, that thinking outside the box, that's the fire service for you, though. We're all got to be thinking outside the box, and I'm glad to hear that they're doing that and that they figured out a way to do it. So.
Yep.
Well, I don't know how long we got here, Tim, but I guess just for the sake of it, is there anything that you really want to touch on or get out there or anything like that? I guess we'll just kind of wrap things up.
My thing has always been that if somebody out there that's listening to this gets in a pinch and is wondering, how do you do this? What do you do that? Phone calls are free. Emails are free. Facebook is free. I am willing to help out anybody, answer questions. And if I can't answer it, I'll find the answer, because luckily enough, I've got a network and a connection with so many people. I can pick up the phone and go, hey, what do you guys think about this? So find me on Facebook, shoot me an email, give me a phone call. All of that stuff is there for you. Use it as a resource. I enjoy talking to firefighters. I enjoy talking to people that want to make things better. And if there's something I can do to help you out, call me, get a hold of me. I don't know what more I can say about that. It's an open door policy.
Awesome. So if you're right with it, then we'll just put all your information, whatever you feel like giving out there, in the show notes for this episode, so people can look it up and contact you if you need to. Otherwise, they can, let us know and we'll get them in contact with you or stuff there.
That is awesome, Tim. And it's something, the grain bin stuff in general, it was really pushed here for
A while.
a few, I'd say probably 4 or 5 years. It was really pushed, but it's definitely kind of coming off that front burner around here anyway.
Just because no department in the area within like an hour has had an incident within the past 8 or so years.
Yeah,
It's tough.
It's a rarity of an event.
It is.
But that goes back to our what's that box?
High risk, low frequency.
Yeah, our high risk, low frequency.
We talk about that a lot.
And it's definitely something that can't be put on the back burner. You need to train on it every year. And
at least once a year, if not more.
Yeah.
So
and that's the thing, and all the things that go with it, with the ropes and the confined space and all those kinds of things, you cannot be efficient with your equipment if you look at it only one time a year. And then when the tones go off and somebody's in the grain bin and you're like, oh yeah, all that stuff's in that tote, and you have to break it out, and you're like, all right, can anybody remember who was the best at putting these on? And we're in the volunteer world, and you guys know as well as I do, who's going to show up?
You have no idea.
You may, depending on the situation, and this is a really, really, really broad statement, it may take 10 people to successfully get that person out of there. It may take 100.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what the situation is, and I don't know what I'm looking at. And the people that are really, really good at what you may need might not be in town due to work or family or sporting events or whatever.
Right, yeah.
And it's never going to happen at the opportune time. I hope it never happens, but calls like that never happen at the opportune time.
Yeah. One thing nice about it though is you can spend a couple nights on it, 2 or 3 nights on it, because there are so many skills involved in it that you can train ropes, you can train grain bin rescue, and you can, the list goes on and what you can actually train while you're training that specific skill.
Well, I know that when we were in charge of training and had that training committee going, we had quite a few times we do trainings on so many different things, but we would find a way to incorporate ropes or to incorporate some sort of something that could be used for it. So even if we weren't training directly on grain bin rescue, you're still training on other aspects that could be used towards that.
Yeah.
And so
like how are we going to get our cofferdam up to the top of the silos, things like that.
Yeah. So you can incorporate that to many different practices. It doesn't just have to be just grain rescue. So you can be training on it without even 100% training on it all year round.
Absolutely.
Basically.
That's 100% true. And if you take, for an example, if you take 10, 15 minutes on a drill, and whoever's in charge of your trainings, take 10, 15 minutes of the start of your drill And when people walk in, throw them a harness and say, put it on. Like,
Yeah.
drill hasn't started. Just did.
It's a good way to
Yeah.
do it.
10,
Though. I mean, it
15
keeps you
minutes.
fresh and yeah.
When they put it on at the snap of a finger, they weren't expecting it. If they can put it on, say, okay, now you go hand it to somebody else and have them put it on.
Pre-training, right, Chris?
Pre-training. That's right. So.
And you know, one thing about the fire service, I'm trying to remember the chief's name, and it'll come to me. But he was a chief in Washington, D.C. Mike Smith. I had the pleasure of working with Mike once, and it was really awesome. But I heard him speak multiple times, and Mike was talking about how excited we get in the fire service for absolutely no reason. And his analogy was this: you get in the fire truck, you blast towards your destination of where they said the fire was. And you're losing your mind when you turn the corner and this thing's honking. He said, why? He said, did you ever see a garbage man turn the corner and look at an entire strip of garbage cans and go, oh my God, there's garbage? Isn't it the same thing?
So
Our
I
job
can't
is
remember
to fight fires. Their job is to pick up garbage cans. Why do we lose our minds when we turn the corner and see a worker?
I'm pretty sure. So, I'm pretty active on Clubhouse. I'm pretty sure this got talked about last night.
Oh yeah.
On that Clubhouse thing with National Fire Radio.
I laugh about it every
awesome.
time I think about it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's hilarious. I never heard that. That's funny.
Yeah.
I can't tell you why either. We're just a little bit different, I
Oh, yeah.
guess. I don't know. But
Well, like I said when we started, you may not have all of your proper things in line when you say, yeah, I'll do this for free for 30 years and enjoy it.
and
Yeah.
enjoy it. That's right. So, well, Tim, it's been awesome to have you on here, and I'm sure we'll have you on here again for sure. But
Yeah.
I think we'll end this one here, and we'll get the information out there, man, and get your information out there to people that might need it or anything like that. But
Yeah. Perfect.
Perfect.
Thank
I'll
you
just,
so much.
I'll just end by saying thank you guys for having me on. And I want to thank you for having the guts to say, hey, I want to try this and getting the word out and putting yourself out in front of the world. It's never easy, but it's a lot of fun, and keep doing what you're doing. And again, if anybody needs anything, all of my information will be at the end of this, and everybody be safe and enjoy the ride.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim.
thanks, Tim. Thank you for listening to our podcast. We hope you enjoyed it.
Be sure to leave us a rating and review wherever you're listening to us.
Find us on Facebook and Instagram at Couplings Fire Podcast.
See you next time.